Hakadosh Boker Or Chodesh Tov Masechet Avodah Zarah Daf Yomi Daf Yoda Mudalev 10a1, but we're going to start on 9b, the last line, where we're going to speak about Ahu Shtara Dahava Kativ Be. There was a shtar, a document, that it was written in the document, okay, date which was post-dated. Yeah? So, Shit Shenin Yeterata, 6 extra years. Right? So now what happens is that it's going to be 6 years later. So for example, if there are 500 years to Malchut Yavan, it was written 506, right? And that this loan took place. So Savur Rabbanan Kamed Rava Lemeima. Now remember, nowadays it became universal that they use 2025, for example, right? And that's going of AD, right? And then you have BC, right? So it became universal. But for example, many times they would go according to kingdoms. So for example, if there was the Roman Empire, we used to count according to the Roman Empire. If it was a Greek Empire, we go according to the Greek Empire, right? Even until today, if I remember correctly, I think the Chinese have their own calendar with their dates. Which one? India also. India, the Arabs have their own one, right? Iran, right? The Arabs, right? Meaning each one has their own calendar, but there's a universal one. Universal one means the 2025. Right. No. Basically, what he's trying to say is that it's actually very beautiful to show you about the power of the Shabbat, but everything else is different. Meaning the solar calendar, right? We know that the Arabs go by the lunar calendar. We also go by the lunar, but we make leap years. They don't make leap years. But meaning that there's many different rules in it. But the concept though is that the the structure, right, of the calendar is very, very well put, that we know that nowadays there's a universal one, right? And then that's it. The Gregorian just added the 11 days. It wasn't like really much of a meaning before that. It was just So basically what we just said is that the difference between the lunar and the solar calendar is going to be 11 days. And also the Gregorian just added on a whole bunch of days because of the difference between the Julian calendar and the Gregorian. The Gregorian only just added on, right? That they would, that's why it says instead of November 23rd, it became December 4th and 5th. And then what happens is that in another, I don't remember if it's another 20 years or 100 years, it will become December 5th and 6th. Meaning when we start Barech Alenu, will change also. It will not become any more 4th and 5th, it will become 5th and 6th. Right? Because of how the Gregorian calendar came and his counting was of the adding of the leap years. Okay? Fine, let's continue. So basically what happens is that every single place, depends where you were, you counted the calendar accordingly. And especially in the olden days. Nowadays, there's like a universal calendar, right? But in the olden days, it just didn't exist, right? What does that mean, didn't exist? Meaning everyone had their own calendar. So he says here, Savu Rabbanan Kamed Rava Lemeimar. So the Talmid Chachamim in front of Rava, yeah, you're checking it, yeah? They thought of saying, Hai Shtar Meucharu. This is called a post-dated shtar, meaning this is called a post-dated document. So Ni'akve Dematya Zimne Velatarif. So we have to wait, and we cannot grab anything until the tarikh, which is there. Meaning, since it's post-dated, I cannot collect anything. If it was going to be predated or the proper date, so right now I could go and I could collect from somebody else because it's like a lien on the property. But if it's going to be post-dated, I cannot collect anything until the date which is actually written there, right?
Well, actually, the date it was recorded.
Yes.
They had a system of recording.
Yes.
We're talking about taking it away from somebody who bought it.
Yes, that's a liens on the property.
You have to have the heads up that when you buy a property that it's recorded in the star, you should know that they can take it from you if there's a problem.
Always. Right? Nowadays, they pay insurance just for that, by the way.
Yep.
Okay?
Title insurance.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So Amarlehu. So he comes and he tells them, Amarlehu Rav Nachman, Hi, Safra Davkana Katve. This Sofer was a Safer Daikan. Vehanach Shitshnin de Malchu Be'elam. Why do you have this extra 6 years? You know why? This is when the Greeks were kings over Elam. Elam is in English, I don't know if it's Elam is Assyria? No, Ashur is Assyria. Elam might be Ethiopia. Yeah. The Anan lo chashvina lehu. that we don't pay it into attention, right? And he did pay attention to it. But really, it's in the proper time. The Tanya was we learned in the Braita. Rabbi Yosef says, Shesh shanim malchu be'elam, ve'achar kach pashta malchutan bechol ha'olam kulo. Meaning, we're going to learn a little bit about Greek history. The Greeks were king over Elam for 6 years. And then after 6 years, they went and they took over the entire world. Okay? Which one? Were kings, right? Over first Elam. And then after Elam, they became kings, right? So says the Gemara, Ya mat kifla Ravacha bar Yaakov. So ask Ravacha bar Yaakov. Mimail le malchut Yevanim maninan. How do we know that we're going to come and we're going to count for the Yevanim? Dilma li Yitziat Mitzrayim. Maybe we're going from Yitziat Mitzrayim maninan. V'shavke le alfa kama. So you just get rid of the first 1,000. V'nakte alfa batra. And we're only going to take, right, the last one. So we're only going to take the me'ot and the asrot and the achadim. But we're not going to take the alafim. Meaning, right, whoever told you that we're going by the Greeks, and therefore we're writing down 101, 100, maybe remember we're going from Yitziat Mitzrayim. Now, technically, Yitziat Mitzrayim was in what year? What did we say? What year was the Yitziat Mitzrayim?
2000. 2042 something? 542.
Iowa.
1948 plus 500.
1948 plus 500.
2000.
Wait a second. Why 1948?
1948 was the birth of Avraham Avinu. Yes.
1948 was the.
If you only come one day shiur yes, one day shiur no, what do you want? I know, that's what we spoke about.
That is crazy.
Plus 500, 2448. So 2448 was the year of Yitziat Mitzrayim. If you're going to write down now, we're during the times of the Greeks, which was 1,000-something years later. So the question is, whoever told you that we're going by the Greeks and it's going to be 1,000, it's going to be 100 years or whatever it is for the Greeks, maybe it was from Yitziat Mitzrayim, and we just dropped the thousands. We only brought down the hundreds and the tens and the ones, basically. Meaning we just dropped the thousands, right? And really going from Yitziat Mitzrayim. That's the question, right? V'shavke l'alfe kama v'nakte l'alfe batra, right? V'hai shtar meucharu, and therefore it is a shtar meuchar. So Amar of Nachman says of Nachman, Bagola, right? In the Gola, we're only going to count Malchei Yevanim bilvad, not any other number other than, right, the Malchut Yevanim. Yeah, that's what he says. So he says, so we already know that 100% that's the way it is. He comes and he says that this in the Artzot Gola, that the minhag was to count to Malchut Yavan because that's what all the Jews were living there. But in Eretz Yisrael, obviously, would be every single king would be a new king. Okay, because that's why they changed it. So says the Gemara, who Savar, so Rav Bar Yaakov thought that they just pushed them off. And he actually found it. And he said, it was actually a Braita. The Braita says a Mefurash, meaning that there's going to be a difference between, right? There's going to be a difference between, right, the Gola and Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, they used to count according to the kings of Israel, right? And in the Gola, which are the diaspora, they used to count according to the kings of the Greeks. Amar Ravina. Ravina says, Matninti nami daika. You could actually deduce it from the Mishnah as well in Rosh Hashanah. The Tanam, as we learned in the Mishnah, Be'echa b'Nisan Rosh Hashanah le'melachim, and the Be'echa b'Nisan is going to be the Rosh Hashanah for the kings, right? V'leregalim, and to do with the regalim also, shalosh regalim. Meaning, how do you start shalosh regalim? Huh? Ken. Iowa. Yeah. What's the first regel?
Nisan, Pesach.
Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. Iowa. Yeah. We need a lot of help here. Yeah, one more time. Yeah. So basically what happens is that Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. We always start with Nisan, by the way. In the songs, we always start Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Nana. Yeah, all those. There's always going to start from Nisan. Nisan is always the first month of the year. So therefore, one second. So he says, since Nisan is always the first month of the year, the first Chag is always Pesach. So he comes and he says, Be'echad Nisan is Rosh Hashanah for the kings. What does that mean? When you had Malchei Yisrael, kings of Israel, whether it was from Yehuda or from Israel or from both, you always wrote down the 10th year of the reign of Shlomo Melech, of King Solomon. Right? You would write down Shlomo Melech, 10th year of his reign. And you would continue going until the 40th year of his reign. And then when he passed away and it would be somebody else, it would be his son, and you would continue going. That's the way that they used to do in the land of Israel. But Golah, they used to do it according to the Greek Empire. So he says here, Be'echad b'Nisan Rosh Hashanah Melachim for kings, and Regalim, Shalosh Regalim. Shalosh Regalim always start Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. That's the way you always started. Always Pesach is the first regel. Ve'amnina, now we said, La Melachim for kings. Why do we need to know it? Amar Rav Chasar says, because of shtarot, because of documents. Right? Why? Because that's when you're going to find out. Utznan, so we're going to learn the Mishnah. Be'echad b'Tishri Rosh Hashanah l'shanim v'lishmitin, meaning Rosh Hashanah for the Melachim is on Nisan. Rosh Hashanah for years, meaning when does it become 5786, was not on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It's on Rosh Chodesh Tishri. Or also for Shemitah. All the Shemitahs start, right, also according to Rosh Chodesh Tishri. So he said, L'shanim for years. L'ma ilchata, what's the ilchata? So he comes and he says, Amar Rav Chasta, b'shtarot, for shtarot. So kasha shtarot adadi, you have a contradiction then. I don't understand you. You're telling me now that it's going according to shtarot. You just said a minute ago that it's Nisan. And why? Because of the kings. And now you're telling a minute later that it's Tishri, and that's the shtarot. So what's going on?
One said Nisan, one said Tishri.
Exactly. So kasha shtarot adade. So Meshanina we answer, Kan Malchei Yisrael, the Kan Malchei Ovdei Kochavim. Right? What does that mean? He says one of them is Malchei Yisrael, and one of them is going to be Malchei Ovdei Kochavim. The Malchei Ovdei Kochavim, we always count from Tishri. If it's Malchei Yisrael, Nisan. Meaning like this: if there's a Jewish king over Israel, we go according to his reign, and whenever his reign starts, Nisan is always a new reign, which means like this. Let's say he became king on Purim.
You have to wait like Trump. Inauguration.
No. He became king on Purim. So when it comes the next Nisan, he's already 1 year ruled. Meaning you already write down, huh?
What if it's only 2 months? That passes a year?
Yeah, because as long as the Nisan is when it starts the count. So if he started beforehand, he's already reigning for 1 year. No, he could reign for 120, but I'm just writing down on the documents, it's 1 year to the rule of, David HaMelech. Even if it's not a full year, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Tell them why for Jewish kings we start from Nisan. Tell them
one second. Because the Torah starts from the Torah, right? But 1 second. So now, right now, what happens is as follows. Okay, he comes and he says, now the Goyim, there we don't have the Jewish king. So since we don't have a Jewish king, then we're going to go for Tishri. So we're going to go. So this year now is 5785. So let's say, for example, we would have a Jewish king in Eretz Yisrael. Yeah. So today we would write down how many years according to the Jewish king. So how many years do you have in Tubibi? Yeah. There was a famous thing with Rav Ovadia Yosef. That Rav Ovadia Yosef many years ago, he went and he said, by the way, you should know, we have to add a letter to your name. Chet. Habibi. Right? You're Habibi. That Rav Ovadia told him that many years ago. Yeah. Uh-huh. So says the Gemara now as follows. Yeah. So he comes and he says, nowadays we do from Tishri. If you're going to tell me Mitzayim, then we do it from Mitzayim. So then you should do it from Nisan. But rather it comes out. So obviously we're counting from Malchei Yavan. Okay, but that's why we're doing it this way, and it's not going from the Yetziat Mitzrayim. Fine. Next, 2 dots. V'yom Genusia shel Milachim. We're talking about now the Yom Genusia. What is my V'yom Genusia shel Malchem? That's when they come and they make the proclamation that he becomes the king. So says the Gemara, we learned in the Braita Yom Genusia V'yom Shemamidim Malkam. So it's much 2 separate things. Yom Genusia Zeloto Davar Kemo Yom Shemamidim Melkam. Because if it's saying two different things, it's mashma, it's two different things. So says the Gemara Lakash, it's not a question. Hadidei, the Hadibrei. One of them is when he became the king, and one of them is when they put his son to the king. Yeah, meaning that many times towards the end of their malchut, they would actually give it over. Meaning it wasn't that they had to wait until they passed away and then they got it. Many times towards the end of his life, they would already do it. And that's what happened with David HaMelech. If you remember David HaMelech, Bathsheba came in, she said, they proclaimed Dodoniyahu the king. It wasn't him, her, she sent in a Tanavi, but meaning that, yeah. No, but afterwards, it was separate. They came separate. No, she came afterwards. She came afterwards. Yeah? One of the children of David HaMelech, he proclaimed that he was his own king. He was the king. And what happened was he didn't invite Shlomo Melech. So she was all afraid because she knew, Bathsheba knew, that her son Shlomo was supposed to become king. So she sent in the Navi. The Navi came in and said, by the way, you should know, the proclaimer, he didn't invite me, So he says, no, that's not true. We have to proclaim Shlomo Melech, he's the one that's going to be the king. And then after he left, then comes in Bathsheba. And Bathsheba comes and says the exact same thing. She's like fortifying it, right? So then he said, no. And he comes and he says, right, Shlomo Melech, and then he went and he proclaimed that Shlomo Melech was going to become the king. Because basically towards the end of their reign, of their era, in order that there shouldn't be machlokot and there shouldn't be anything, right away they would proclaim who is already the next king. You understand why? Because if not, then it becomes machlokot. This one, the other one. And by the way, that's when all the machlokot start. 100%. If they don't do it properly, meaning if they don't do it beforehand, many times all of a sudden it comes afterwards and now there's a machlokot. No, which one and the other one and this one and that one. Okay. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. So says the Gemara. Yeah, they already did it. Ken. Umi mukme malka bar malka. He comes and he says, are you going to be maneh, a king, the son of a king? Right? He comes and he says, Vatani Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef came and he said, Hine katon netaticha bagoyim she'en moshvim melech b'melech. Right? He says, you're not going to put a melech b'melech. Bazu yatameot she'en lahem lo ktav lo lashon mishel atzmam. So therefore, the bride is coming to say, how are you going to become mitzayen and idua kazeh that the Romans are not doing anything? Okay, because everything that we were talking about was because of Rome. So it says the Gemara, you're right. Elamai yom genusia. What does it mean yom genusia? Yom aleida, it's the birthday. Meaning they used to make a big party on the birthday. Right? Somebody just had a birthday, so you made a whole parade, no? So he says what happens is the same thing. They used to make a birthday. So when they used to make a birthday, right, they used to make a big party. So that was a yom genusia shalaim. Okay, so says the Gemara, Vatanya yom genusia yom aleida. Says 1 second, it says yom genusia yom aleida. So yom genusia cannot be yom aleida. Meaning it can't be the same thing. If you just told me now yom genusia equals birthday, but it tells you yom genusia and it tells you yom aleida. So it's two separate things. So answers the Gemara, it's not a question. Hadidei, hadibrei. One is his birthday, which that's Yom Genusia, and the other one is his son's birthday. Meaning like the prince, by the crown prince, when he was born, it was another, like a big holiday. So they made it into a holiday. So says the Gemara, but I have a question. Vatanya, we learned in the right. Yom Genusia shelo, Yom Genusia shel beno, Yom Alida shelo, Yom Alida shel beno. Here it's written in Furash, you have Yom Genusia, his own, Yom Genusia, his son's, Yom Aleida Shelo, meaning birthday is his birthday, and Yom Aleida of his son. So obviously they're nothing the same thing. So it says, you're right. Ela mai Yom Genusia, Yom Shemamidim bo Malkam. It's the day of the inauguration, right? That they proclaimed that he was the king. Velakashia hadidei hadibrei. It's his and his son. Now if you're going to ask that you're going to put a king, the son of a king, she'ela alidei she'ela. When they used to ask him, mukme, they used to put it. Kagon, for example, Asverus ben bar Antoninus the Malach, that he actually went and he was the king because of his father. That means they didn't normally do it, but once in a while they would do it. That means they would call a son after another son, meaning like a son after a father. They would actually make him king, the son after the father, if they asked it and everything was done properly. Okay, so Amale Antoninus says Antoninos lerebi to Rebbe, right? Ba'ina dimloch asveros beri techotai. He wants that his son Asveros should be the king after him. Now, one more time, they had a minhag that they would not do king after king. By us, we try to do king after king, right? Unless obviously they're not fitting, we try to do king after king. But by them, they would not do that. So the question is, Antoninus, remember Antoninus was a very good friend of Rabbi, right? And he came from Esav. from Rome, and that's why there was the secret meetings and everything between Rebbe and Antoninus. And he used to be mechabed Rebbe and everything, right? Everything. And then if you remember, Rebbe used to come, and he always used to go to Antoninus, right? And they used to speak together, and they used to learn together, and mamash, like it was a whole thing. So he says here, Antoninus comes and he asks Rebbe, and he says, listen, Rebbe, I want my son Asferos, right, to become the next king. Betitaved Tveria Klanya, right? And Tveria should become, right, the patur from mass, meaning it should be exempt from taxes. So if you go to, it's like it's a type of free zone, right? Elmaleh lehu chada avdi trei lo avdi. Now, if I'm going to tell the sarim one of my bakashot, they would only do one. They're not going to do two. Meaning, if I want to do two things, I want to make a Sveros meaning I wanted to make my son the king after me. Plus, I want to make Tveria a free zone. Now, if I come to Congress and I'm going to tell them that, they would only accept one. They're not going to accept two. So what should I do? So Rebbe came and he answered with a remez. Aitu Gavra Arke ve'achavre. He brought a person and he put him on top of his shoulders. V'yav le'yona le'ela bidei. And he gave a yonah on top of the hands of the upper guy. And he tells the lower guy, go tell the upper guy, to let go of the yonah. So now this was something incredible. From this story that I have people's eyebrows going up, like what in the world is going on? Antoninus understood exactly what Rebbe wanted. What happened? Amar, so it comes out, Shemamina hachi kamali. This is what he told me. At by minai daserus beri imloch tachtai ve'emaleh asferus. He says very simple. I'm going to go and I'm going to ask that who should be king, Asferos, and I'm going to tell Asferos. By the way, when you become king, make Tveria into a free zone, and that's how you're gonna have success. Yeah. Yeah. One more time, right? Comes Antoninus to Rebbe and he asks him advice. He tells him, listen, right? I want my son to be king. So that's already an exception to the rules. To make an exception to the rule, I have to ask Congress because again, over there, right? They would not do ben after son. They wouldn't do son after father. They wouldn't do it. That was the Roman custom. They would not do it. So therefore, right? I'm asking for an exception. But there's another exception that I want, that Tveria is going to become a free zone. So now if I'm going to ask for two, they're not going to do two. They would only do one. So what should I do? So Rebbe comes, and instead of answering him with furash, right, he tells him, listen, you know what? Come. He brings a person inside, and then he brings somebody else, and he puts him on top of his shoulders. And then he gives a yonah to the guy on the top, a yonah, a pigeon, right, on the guy on the top. And then he tells the guy on the bottom, tell the guy on top of you to release a yonah. And that's what happens. And then he releases a yonah. So he already understood that means that I have to come and have to put somebody on top of me. Who's that? My son. And then I'm going to tell my son, let the Tveria become a free zone. So that's exactly what he did. He understood that from Rebbe because of what he did. Which one? Alma. So Amarle, so he comes and he says like this, Antoninus tells Rebbe, Metzarin li chashuv romai. Right? Oh, I thought it only happened in certain places. He says, the chashuve Romi, they're coming and they're bothering me. So imagine, Antoninus is the king, right? But, sometimes you have these boards, that they come and they bother the king. Yeah? So he says, look, they're bothering me. So have a legina kol yoma. Rebbe used to bring him to the gina every single day. Akale pugla minishra kameh. And every single day, Rebbe used to be oked in front of Antoninus at snon. Snon is a radish. He used to be oked. Amar, so he comes and he says, Antoninus says, Shema mina hachi kamali. At ketol chad minayhu, velo titkare behu bekulum. Meaning, kill one by one. Kill one by one. Don't go after everybody in one shot. You kill one by one. Because by killing one by one, you're going to succeed. Right? But don't kill. Huh? Can Rabbi Chaval. But again, you understood how Rabbi did it. Rabbi told him the answer, but he did it with a snon. So every single day, he used to come in, poop, pluck up one snon. Next day, pluck up another snon. So all of a sudden, you used to hear This guy all of a sudden died that he fell out of the window. The other guy, the other guy, I don't know what. Yeah. Yeah, the other guy, things like that. All of a sudden, 100% they could tell him they could get him. So says the Gemara, right? He comes and he tells them, fine. Daf Yoda Mubet. Okay? He comes and he says like this. He says 10b. So he says, so what does it say mefurash? So answer number 1, he says, Mishum, right? He says, no, you know why? Because if right now the Chashuvei Rome are going to find out that I said this, they're going to go crazy at me. So what happened? He said another. So he says, okay, so say it quietly. And so the Gemara, Mishum dichtiv, was it written, Ki ofa shamayim yolich et hakol, ubal knafayim yagid davar. Yeah, what does that mean? Mamash, the word spreads no matter what. Anything that you say there's leaks. Leaks are everywhere. They could come and go crazy. Leaks are all over the place. Yeah, you think it only happens now? Everything's there. Havale ahi barta deshma Gira. Antoninus had a daughter. Her name was Gira. Yeah, very interesting name, no? Or Gila. Okay, Gila sounds better. But okay, but Gira or Gila. Ka'avda Isura. It's right that she did an Isur. What does that mean? She had relations with another man. Yeah. So what happens? Antoninus, he wanted to know. So Shadale Gargira. So Rebbe went and he sent him a Gargira. Now Gargira is like a type of a mustard. So Rebbe knew, right, that obviously he doesn't need it. So if he's giving a message, so he doesn't understand, right? So Antoninus comes. Shalach lo Gargira is because his daughter, his heart is on the daughter of, is on his daughter, which is Gira, that she was going after a sin. So Antoninus comes, right, and he is also now acting like Rebbe. So what does he do? He sends a Gargira, right, to mustard seed to Rebbe to show him that his daughter Gira, right, is going. Yes. So Shada le Kuzbarta. Kuzbara. Yeah. So he sends him Kuzbara. So why? That he should shechter. He should shechter. He should
she was
shechter.
married, that would be the law, but maybe
Yes.
she was unmarried.
1 second. He should shechter. Kos Barta. Barta is a daughter. Kos Shchita. Yeah, take off her head. So Shada le Karte. So he went and he said, right, 1 second. If right now he's going to come and he's going to kill her, so now he just killed himself because he doesn't have any more descendants. So therefore he sent him back Karti. Karti is leaks. So Shalech le Chasa. So then he sent him Chasa. Right? What is Chasa? The lettuce, right? He says, why? So he should have Rachmanut on her. Chasa le Chas. בדיוק. בינתיים הוא יכול לעשות סלט ישראלי כבר, no? Yohan, he could do salat Yisraeli kvar. Yeah, with the 100%. Kol yoma, every single day, avashada le'dava pricha b'matarta. So every single day, Antoninus used to send to Rebbe zahav, gold, which was mirusak, which was crushed in sake or. V'chite apumayhu, and he used to put chitim on top of it. So for when they used to open it up, they wouldn't realize it was gold. Yeah, so what happened? Amar lehu, Antoninus used to say, Am techite leRebbe. So Antoninus used to tell the shlichim, go bring this sweet to Rebbe. Amar le Rebbe, right? So Rebbe said to Antoninus, Lo tzrichna, I don't need. Idli tuva, I've got a lot of gold. I don't need anymore. So Amar le, he said, Leve leman de batrach. It should be for the people, for your children, that they come after you. Tiave le batrae, that they should give it to the ones coming to, which are their nechadim. Te'atu batrach, in order that they should come, and the nechadim nepuk alayhu. They're going to come and they're going to be also, basically paying the Roman governments, the ones that are coming after me. Meaning, basically, he was giving him money in order that in the future, his children and grandchildren will be able to pay off the Roman government, like to bribe them, in order that they should be able to do whatever they needed to do. Another things between Rebbe and Antoninus. Havyale ahi nikrata. Antoninus had a me'ara. Me'ara, a cave. Yeah? 4 door. Yeah? So he says, Zahavi aile mi bete. That he used to go from his house to the house of Rebbe. Right? So imagine, from his house, he had a
It was
secret,
It was
a secret, yeah.
No, the government didn't know about it.
No, it was a secret thing.
Well, you
Right?
hear how? Well, you hear.
This is incredible. Listen to this. Kol Yoma, huh? Listen. Kol Yoma, Havamaite tre avde. Every day, Antoninus used to bring 2 avadim to go through the cave. Because remember, the king can never go by himself, right? Chad katla baba of the Rebbe. One of them used to kill him at the entrance of Rebbe. Yes. Vechad katle baba de vete. And one of them,
These were people
one
that
of
were
them,
convicted
right?
of capital crimes. They're all going to die anyway.
Right? And one of them was, right, at the entrance of his own house. Right? So that means nobody would ever find out. Meaning nobody would ever find out what happened. Now, maybe you're going to tell me how you just killed him, right? Yeah, whatever it is. Now, the question is, would he kill one in front of another? Probably not. He would probably do it like very, very carefully. That basically would tell one of them, listen, come inside with me and you stay here. And then the second that the guy would stay there, boom, they would kill him. Right? Right? No. Okay, so he went and I sent him off or he sent him back.
How many years was this relationship?
Many years, until the end, until they died. Amarle, he went and he told them, Ba'inna da'atina lo nishkach kavar kamach. So he comes and he says, whenever I come, nobody could be here. Means Antoninus tells Rabbi, whenever I come, it's a private audience. I can't have anybody here. Yom achadash kechel b'chanina berchama daviativ. He once found Reb Chanina berchama that was there. Amarle, he says, Lo amin lecha ba'inna da'atina. I told you, nobody could be here. Amarle, he says, let din barinash. He says, it is not a human being. He's a malach. Yeah, he's a malach. He's not a human being. Yeah. So he comes and he says, now obviously, right, Rebbe, he says over here, right, he only said it just because of the Shalom Malchut, obviously, right? So he went and he said, right, Amale, he says, Elmaleh lehu avda de gani abava de kaim veleti. So he went and he told, right, he went and he said to the Eved, which was outside, that he could come inside. So Azar Reb Chanina bar Chama, ashke chedav katil. So now what happens is this. Remember, this rabbi is here. Now Rabbeinu HaKadosh just lied and said, no, he's an angel. He's not a human being. So he went and he tells the angel, Antoninus, the king, he tells the Caesar, right? He tells the angel, by the way, can you tell the guy that's sleeping at the door just to come inside? Right? Now he goes and the guy's dead. He's sleeping on the door. It's a long sleep. You understand that? It's a long sleep. So he comes and he says, he was already dead. Amar, he went and he said, hey, Chava, what am I going to do? If I'm going to tell him that he's dead, you never come and say bad things. So if I'm just going to leave him and go, I'm mizalzel al-malchut. So he went and he did tchiyat hametim. V'shadre, so he sent him. Amar, says Antoninus to Rabbi, Yadana, I know, that even the smallest of you guys can come and do tchiyat hametim. Mihu be'inna de'atina lo nishkach inish kamach. Nevertheless, when I come, I don't want anybody here. Meaning, Antoninus comes and he tells, exactly, Antoninus comes and he tells Rabbeinu HaKadosh, he says, listen, I know that even the smallest of you guys, of the rabbis, are able to do tchiyat hametim. So therefore, the fact that he came and he did tchiyat hametim, it's not a proof that he's an angel. But I ask of you, when I come, nobody here. So Kol Yoma, Hayam Meshamesh Rebbe. Every single day he used to come and he used to serve Rebbe. So imagine the Caesar, the king, the guy on top of the entire world, would come and serve Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Remember, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was the author of the Mishnah. Huh? Yeah, Suda. Yeah. Ma'achile. He used to give him to eat. Ma'achile. That's in Hebrew. Mashkele. He used to give him to drink. Ki hava bay Rebbe lemesa kalpuria. When he used to go to bed, hava gachin kame puria. He used to lie down right before the mitah. The Amaleh told him, Saki lavai lepuriach. Go on top of me to go to your bed. You know, like he would use you as a step to go on top of the bed. Step on me to go on top of the bed. Huh? Amaleh, he told him, he says, Lav orach ara lezalzule b'malchuta kulehai. He says, it's not normal. Huh? It's not normal to be Yeah, he comes and he says, right? It's not normal to be mizalzel in the malchut like that. He says, Amaleh, he says, Mi semeni mitzat tachtecha, right? לעולם הבא. הלוואי that I should be a carpet under you in עולם הבא. That's what Antoninus is coming and he's telling, right, Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Right? Elmaleh, he comes and he says, Yaakov and Esav. Elmaleh, he comes and he says, Atina le'alma de'ateh. Am I going to come to Olam Haba? Elmaleh, he says, yes. Elmaleh, he says, V'aktiv, it's written, V'lo yeh sarid lebet Esav. There's not going to be anybody from Esav. So he answered him, Misho sema Esav. That's only if you're doing the actions of Esav. Meaning, if you're going to do the actions of Esav, in Achanam, you're not going to get Olam Haba. But the way that you act, for sure, you're going to come and you're going to get Olam Haba. The Tanya Miach, you also learned this in the Braita. V'lo yeh sarid lebet Esav. Yachol hakol. I would have thought to everybody, T'monom lebet Esav. Misho sema Esav. Right? Elmaleh, say, Antoninus tells Rabbi, V'aktiv, it's written, Shama Edom elachea v'chol nesiyah. There in Gehinam, you're going to have Edom. It's kings and it's all ministers. Elmaleh, he says, Melacheha velo kol melacheha. Melacheha, the kings, but not all the kings. Nesiyah, kol nesiyah velo kol sareah. Kol nesiyah, not kol sareah. Right? Why? Because there's going to be obviously a nasi. He comes and he's a Moshel Romi Asher Eno Melech, that he's not a Melech. So he comes and he says, Sar is a Yotz Malchuti. He's like a Santor here, says a senator. Right? Yotz Malchuti is a senator. Right? So he says, that's what he says. Right? So Tanya Mihachi, we also come and we learn in a Braita. Right? Because he says, because it said there, Chol Nesiyah. It was written in the Pasuk. So if he knew it was Chol Nesiyah. Right? So he comes and he says, Kani Melachia, we also learned this in the Braita. Melachia v'lo kol melachia, kol nesiyah v'lo kol sareah. Melachia v'lo kol melachia pral Antoninus ben Asferos. This is coming to exclude Antoninus ben Asferos, that he does has a chelek l'olam haba. Kol nesiyah v'lo kol sareah pral laktia bar Shalom. He was a sar of Romi that he also got chelek leolam haba. We're going to see it later on in Hara 40. We're going to see what did he do. So Katia bar Shalom, what is it exactly? There was a Kesar that he hated the Jews. Elmaleh lechashiv de malchut. So he told the chashovei malchut, mi she'ala lo nima beraglo yiktaena v'yichyeh v'yanicher v'yisrael. He says, what happens if a person has like a dead skin, right, on his legs? What should he do? Should he cut it off and then he's going to live, or should he leave it and he's mitzvah with the dead skin? Amru lo. They told him yiktaena v'yichyeh. Cut it off and then you're going to basically kill the Jews and then you're going to live. Elmaleh Katia bar Shalom says Katia bar Shalom to the Caesar, right? Don't do that for two reasons. Chada, you won't be able to get everybody. Why? Because since they're so scattered around the entire world, you can't kill all the Jews. It's impossible. You could try, but you won't kill everybody. They're too scattered around the world. It says in a pasuk, my karma, what does that mean? If you're going to tell me about that they were baruchot, we learned this in Masechta in Masechet Tanit. Just like the world cannot sustain without the four ruchot shebaolam, so too the world cannot sustain itself without Yisrael. And furthermore, it's going to be called a malchutach ketiyah, right? Which means they're going to call you a melech of a malchut ketuah because you went and you started, killing out a whole bunch of your own people. So Elmaleh, he tells him, Meimar Shapi Kamarta, you did say mihu, however, though, he comes and he says, you know what? You're right. But if you're going to be menatzeach, the king, in a vikuach, you know what happens, right? They throw him into a house full of dirt, and that's where he's buried. Meaning, you're correct, but you should know you just won me, Kilu. And if you won me, what happens? This is your punishment. So kadhava naktin leveazlin, right? When they were taking him, Amra le'ahim metrunita, there was a matronita that came and she said, Vaile li'ilfa de azla belomichsa. Woe to the sfina that is going, right, without paying the knas, without paying, meaning woe to the boat that's traveling and he doesn't have to pay the fines, right? Which means oy lecha ketiyah, right? You're going to be killed because you helped Israel. Nafal al reshad de uleta bekat'a. So he went and he took a sakin and he did brit milah to himself. And he says, Yavit michsi. I paid my dues. Chalfit vavrit. I'm going to take this world for olam haba. Ki kashadule. So when they threw him inside, Amar, he says, Kol nechasai, all my properties are given to Rabbi Akiva and his friends. So he gave everything. This was one of the chashuvei malchut.
What year was this?
During the time of the destruction of Bet HaMikdash, right before the destruction of Bet HaMikdash. Around 2,000 years ago. יצא רבי עקיבא ודרש, so רבי עקיבא went and he was דורש, והייתה לאהרון ולבניו, מחצה לאהרון ומחצה לבניו. When he went and he said that it was going to be for Rabbi Akiva and his friends, how much does Rabbi Akiva take? So Rabbi Akiva took 50%. Because when it says, והייתה לאהרון ולבניו, חצי לאהרון וחצי לבניו. So therefore, אותו דבר, רבי עקיבא לקח חצי מהנכסים, וחצי הלך לבן אדם השני. יצא בת קול.
על שלום או על הראשון? על הקיסר?
על שלום.
גם נהיה נורמלי כאילו? גם נהיה טוב אלינו?
לא הבנתי.
אז הוא גם...
So says the Gemara, right? יצא בת קול, בת קול came out and said, כתיה בר שלום מזומן לחיי העולם הבא. He's going to get it בעולם הבא. בחר רבי started crying. ואמר, and he says, יש שקונה עולמו בשעה אחת, יש שקונה עולמו בכמה שנים. Some people, ממש, they're able to get to the עולם הבא in one moment. And some people, they come and they're able to work like, I don't know what. They don't get it. Antoninus שם של רבי, Antoninus was משמש רבי, Adarkan שם של רבי, Adarkan also was משמש to רבי. He's a son of Anuma Akum also as well. Right? Kishachiv Antoninus. So when Antoninus died, Amar Rabbi says Nitparda Chavila. What does that mean? The Ava, right, was already, that's it. Because he says now we're going to come and we're going to have Gizerot against Klal Yisrael. Because basically when Antoninus was a king, Rabbi, because when Antoninus was the king, the Caesar, no, he died. He was going to on his deathbed. So when he was going to die, so therefore he came and he said, Nitparda Chavila, that's it, because now we don't have any more protection. Right? Kishachiv, please. Kishachiv, when Adarkan came and he died, Amar Rav also said, Nitparda Chavila. So you had two different people. You had Rabbi and then Rav. Remember, Rabbi is Rabbi Yudah Nasi, it's some Mishnayot, and Rav is in Bavel. So Rav was Adarkan. So it means you have many times that you have these people that they're doing shimush to the big Dolei Ador, and then when they passed away, now they said, Nitparda HaChavila.